Hi, I'm Janine Decker. I live in Norco, California. I'm the mother of two adult sons. I have one grandson and one granddaughter. I grew up in Southern California, down in the Orange County area until my early teens. And then because of the schools and such out there and my parents' desire to kind of commune and live off the land, when I was 13, we moved up to the high desert out in the middle of nowhere on a 165-acre ranch with no electricity. We had a spring for water, but the plumbing and stuff to the house was not complete. So even the house at the time didn't really have running water to all the house. We used an outhouse. Took a bath in a tin tub in front of a fireplace. So very rural from living in Santa Ana, street tough, to out in the boondocks. It's funny. What I miss from childhood is, as a kid, I hated it. I thought my parents were insane dragging me out in the middle of nowhere. But now I kind of miss having all that space and freedom around me, being able to grow and raise all of our own food and fruits and vegetables, being so independent. I spent most of my days, if I wasn't out doing chores, I was out riding my horse just wherever I wanted. So I kind of miss that lifestyle. Like I said, it was interesting. At the time, I never ever thought I would miss something like that, and now I do. My mom was religious, not to the extent that we didn't go to church every weekend. We did when I was younger. We went to church on Sundays, and I went to Sunday school. As I got older, we mostly went on the high holy holidays, as it were. Christmas and Easter. She'd drag us off to church on those days. So my mom was fairly religious, but not to the point of pushing it on us so much. I do remember when I was young, my mom and my grandmother taking me to some different churches, and one of them, I think, was like a Southern Baptist with a lot of yelling and screaming. And I remember burying my head in my mom's lap, and my mom saying, "Yeah, that scared the crap out of me." And she never took me back to that one again. That was like a one-off. But yeah, but as a general rule, just like not too much, just normal. Even as a kid, I always kind of questioned how that they couldn't all be right and they couldn't all be wrong. So would go with friends to different churches trying to see why theirs was different, why they thought theirs was right versus the one that I went to, that kind of thing. So just over time, I think, of exploring all these different religions and that, and reading and studying world religions, and that, is over time it just became that most of these stories had a lot of similarities to them and were mostly absurd. So just kind of just a general progression. Probably by the time I was in my early 30s, I was pretty much done with religion. What brought me into the nursing field, I was a single parent with two young boys. My youngest son's father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And after helping to take care of him, we actually were living in the mountains in Big Bear at the time, and we relocated to his mom's place in Des Moines, Iowa, to take care of him until he passed away. At that time, through the process of that, I decided to go back to school and get my nursing degree. It's funny because I ended up focusing on hospice care. When I first went into the nursing program, after taking care of my husband, I knew that I wanted to go into nursing, but at the time it was like, I don't want to do hospice. That's too hard. But he was on hospice, and so that's, like I said, what drove me into nursing. By the time I finished my nursing curriculum, I knew that I wanted to be a hospice nurse. That's the field I wanted to go into. So I think once I was through that grieving process, I just knew that's where I was going to go. I even was able to precept in hospice my last semester of my nursing program, and worked briefly in skilled nursing and stuff till I had enough time, and then went into hospice, and I've been into hospice over 20 years now. There's a lot of misconceptions about what hospice care is, and a lot of people are afraid, oh, it means you're dying. Yes, it's there for end-of-life care, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're dying right that second. And it does provide a lot of support to the patient and to the family. We look at the patient family as a unit, we're not just there strictly for the patient and ignore everybody else in the family. Everybody is included in that plan of care and, in the process. I think I enjoy most about hospice that I feel like I really make a difference at a time when people are so desperate. I can't change the outcome. I can't fix the problem. I can't make them better. I can't heal them. But I can help them to understand that what is happening, what's a normal part of the dying process versus what's not. I can, provide a lot of teaching so that people aren't beating themselves up afterwards, the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. If only I'd fed them one more bite, they would still be here with us. It's helping through that. The fact that your time is spent pretty much one-on-one with that family. You're not rushing from, one room to another in a hospital environment. I spend as much time with each family as they need at that particular time. And I think it makes a huge difference in their perception and in the person's comfort. But I think that calmness that environment provides versus the stressfulness that a hospital provides, the sterileness of a hospital versus the more home-like feeling of being home. It's a much calmer, more peaceful process. And if I've helped somebody pass peacefully, help the family to understand that they didn't do anything wrong, that they did the best they could, and that this disease just won, it was just time, then I've done a good job and I have satisfaction with that. I still get times where they want me to hold hands and pray, and I just sit there and nod my head, and it comforts them and that makes them feel good. So that's not the time to try to argue with somebody over their beliefs. It doesn't matter, so I do what I can to make sure that those beliefs for them are met. I actually have gotten very upset. I've worked with chaplains that I felt were very discriminatory towards certain beliefs, and that has irritated me to no end, because you're supposed to be there to meet the patient's needs, not your own. And so when I've had chaplains that, that maybe the person's Catholic and they don't want to be bothered with trying to find them a priest or something, that just pisses me off to no end. That has always kind of, that one person should get less care than another because of their beliefs. It's not right, I've taken care of patients that I clearly did not agree with them on other issues, even philosophically, that we're so far apart. Doesn't matter. I'm there to take care of them. My beliefs, my feelings need to be left out of that. As an atheist, I guess I look at the death of my patients, it's each life well lived. Death is unavoidable for all of us. But if I can, like I said, assist the family, that at that time, I've made the person comfortable. I've helped the family to understand what happens when someone dies, what's normal, that, I alleviate any symptoms, any pain, any restlessness, any breathing difficulties, whatever symptoms they have. I've done a good job. I've done a good thing. This person would not have had that care if I wasn't there. If they were in the hospital, they'd be hooked up to machines, they'd be hooked up to IVs. Their lungs would be filling with fluid because of the IVs that the hospitals have to keep because they have to have access to a vein. The nurses there don't necessarily always have the time to sit and explain what's going on. So I think it's a very different process when somebody dies in a hospital environment versus in their home environment. I've had a few assignments in hospice that have touched me very deeply. One of them was very, very early on, probably one of my very, very first patients. A gentleman was an engineer. I won't discuss his disease and stuff, but he was very, very particular about how everything was done. He felt he'd been abandoned by his medical professionals, and he was very angry. And it was interesting. Like I said, it was one of my early cases, so I was very green. And in the end, him and I had managed to develop quite a relationship where he fully trusted me with his medications. I mean, he was so particular. He didn't want anybody filling up his med box, anything. And we had worked out, it's like, okay, we'll do it together. You know, we'll go over each pill and where it goes and stuff. And over the time of that he was on hospice, his attitude changed and he was more accepting of his disease. His wife was so appreciative of the care that I had given him, and the fact that I could make such a difference for this gentleman who was so angry. That case has always stuck with me. I've had another case that has stuck with me for the opposite reasons. Another sweet, sweet little gentleman was living in the back bedroom of his son's home. The family was disinterested in his care. He was pretty much attempting to take care of himself, and he passed horribly. I actually showed up to do my visit and found him passed away, half on his bed, half off. He had tried to get up and use the commode and had passed. He was purple. He'd been dead for hours. Obviously, nobody had checked on him, and that was horrible, and that one has stuck with me. On a personal level, life throws you struggles. I've been widowed twice. Both of my sons passed when their fathers were very, very young. One was from a suicide, the other was from cancer. So I had two young children to support at a very early age, which is why I went back to school and got my nursing degree. So out of that did come something positive. I've had lots of death in my life, so it's kind of funny that I end up in hospice, but that's another issue. As far as I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been widowed, so I've kind of run the gamut there. I, about 10 years ago, found out that I have a genetic kidney disease that I did not know about. It's not on my mother's side of the family. Probably came from my father's side, but my parents were divorced before I was born, and I never met my father. So I don't know anything about his side of the family. It was either came from his side of the family or was a spontaneous mutation. But because of that, I am now dealing with that I'm on dialysis. I am on the transplant list waiting for a kidney, and I know, my time eventually will run out. But that's okay. It's part of life, and I just live each day to the fullest and try to, acknowledge. And I guess maybe, again, because of all the time I've had in hospice care, I've always made sure that those that are close to me know how I feel about them. I try not to hide my feelings or hold things in. It's like, I don't want there to be unresolved issues when I pass. So I've done everything I can to make sure that my family and friends know how I feel and know where I stand on issues. I guess some last thoughts. Religion, no religion. I just wish people could get beyond things like that and look at the individual as a human, as who they are, not the color of their skin, not their race, not their sex, not their religious beliefs. Look at people for the value of who they are, what they do for society, how they contribute to each other, and for people just to be nicer, just look out for each other, and we would all, if we all took care of each other, we would all be better.